and welcome to this week's episode. I am Mina Amso, your host, and I am so glad that you're here. Hope you're having a lovely day, evening, morning, middle of the night, not too sure, but good to have you with us. So I am speaking to my good friend and Iraqi immigrant, Dr. Rita Kettoola. And Rita is a friend of mine, and she's here with me to talk about her journey of making it to New Zealand from Iraq. And she was quite young, about 7.5. She came with her family from Malta, and got a very interesting story. So without further ado, Rita, kia ora.
Kia ora, Mina. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for showing up. Thanks, making time. It's good to see you. So you've come to New Zealand when you were pretty young, so you probably don't remember a lot of what went down.
No.
But what was your first impression, if you remember?
I don't remember too much. And so we left Iraq after the Gulf War, and my parents managed to get visas to go to Malta, which is a tiny island underneath Italy. Ooh. So I was 3 when we left Iraq, and then we left Malta at about when I was 7.5, and came under. At that time, New Zealand was taking a lot of professional families to fill the gap, although it turned out later to be quite hard to find jobs in their professions, but we got here nonetheless. And one thing I do remember is I remember feeling that the kids in New Zealand weren't as nice.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to adjust in that regard, and I needed to learn yet another new language. And but overall, I guess as a kid, it's easier in many ways, to adapt.
Did you adjust well as you grew older?
Yeah, I think pretty well. I think obviously there can be a lot of difficulties, particularly as you get older in the teenage years and as you're exploring your own identity and culture and figuring out who you are and where you're from. And a lot of the time there was this tension that I didn't feel like I was fully Kiwi, but I also wasn't fully Iraqi. So there was quite a strong tension there, but learning to feel through that, I learned to embrace both cultures and merge them well.
How did you end up figuring out that, coming to that identity foundation that you are Iraqi and you are Kiwi? Perhaps more about the Iraqiness. When did your Iraqiness start to flourish and blossom and it looking beautiful?
Good question. I think mostly when I got to uni, because I went to a high school where I was the only Iraqi, and it was mostly Kiwis and some Asians, which is quite vague, but I was the only Iraqi. And I did have a few friends from church that were Iraqi, but not many. And so it was only really when I got to end of high school, I started joining an Iraqi youth group. And then at uni, I met a lot of Iraqis my age, and I really clicked with them and got along with them. And I guess over time, I felt like we could share kind of quite a special and new bond because they had also grown up here. So I think we had a lot of similarities and could, whether it was understood the culture, how things work, the food. And so I started to appreciate the uniqueness and beauty that our culture can bring and the warmth. And so now I really feel when people ask, I tell them I'm Kiwiraqi, part Kiwi, part Iraqi.
Yep, that's a great term to use, eh? Yeah, so you're Kiwiraqi and you're 7.5 years old. That's so young. You've got 2 brothers. It sounds like you're the sense of Iraqiness started with friendships. Friendships helped you know and strengthen the identity of who you are as an Iraqi woman.
Definitely.
Do you find food with any connection to this culture?
Yeah, I think food is a big part of most cultures,
Yeah.
and definitely in Iraqi culture too. And food brings people together in all cultures, you know. There's
Yeah,
such,
definitely. Yeah.
and I love, love,
Yeah.
love Iraqi food. It's definitely still my favorite.
Of course. What do you love to eat? Three things. One, two, three. State them for us.
Favorite Iraqi foods would have to be dolma,
Yeah.
which, for those that don't know, a rice and meat mix wrapped in grapevine leaves or onions or a whole lot of vegetables and boiled, and biryani
Yum.
and
Yes.
tapula.
Okay, which type of dolma? There's a few different styles. There's the one with the meats. There's the one with the fasting. We call them because there's no meat in there, like dolma malizet, which means it has oily dolma.
Yeah, olive oil.
Yeah, I mean, do you
Definitely,
have you ever?
definitely lamb.
Hey,
I'm definitely a lamb girl. I love my lamb dolma.
you love your lamb dolma.
Yeah.
Do you have you ever made dolma before?
I want to learn. I've only made it with my mum,
Okay,
not on my own,
you
but I will learn.
you are keen to embark on this rather journey of growth.
Yeah,
You do,
yeah, yeah.
you do
Definitely.
feel like you're like a woman when you know how to cook food,
No,
especially
you made
Iraqi
it.
food. Do you feel like a sense of pride? Like, I am a woman. I am becoming old.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's a really beautiful way of holding on to
Yeah.
holding on to things from our own culture, and
Yeah.
they're things that are quite practical and tangible that you can keep and pass on to others around you and future generations.
Plus, it's so yummy. I mean, who doesn't want to have it? Like, it's
Yeah.
like honestly, in every occasion, every gathering, if I see a table full of food, the dolma is always the one that's eaten up
Yeah.
so quickly. Like, if you literally blink, like you've missed it. The plate is gone. It's got like
You have to
everyone
push
is
them out of the way.
yeah, like, and I mean, if you look at other like types of food, like I don't know, pizza or like even biryani. Biryani doesn't come close. Have you noticed? There's always a race to the end, to the bottom of the plate, bottom of this huge. I mean, it's always a huge dish. Like
Yeah.
we don't go small.
No.
Iraqis don't go small, eh? Like we always go large. Go big or go home, right?
Yeah, definitely. Big
So,
fighters.
so you love biryani as well? Do you like the chicken or the lamb, or do you like both?
Probably chicken. I guess it's just the kind of biryani I grew up with.
Okay. And what was the third part?
Tapula.
Ah, tabbouleh. Why do you
Yeah.
like tabbouleh?
I love it. I love tangy flavors.
Yeah.
So it's just a beautiful fresh
Yeah.
summer salad, and it's got a lemon dressing, and I love tangy flavors. And it is quite
Healthy.
I don't really personally, the homemade tapula is much nicer than the ones you buy at shops, because I
The
feel like
ones
they're quite different.
the ones that you buy in the shops, I can almost say it's like an imposter. Like someone
Oh yeah,
trying to steal your identity. It's not even tabbouleh. Do not buy it from the shops.
I think they unfortunately swap out for a lot of couscous and less vegetables.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Traditionally, it's actually mostly vegetables and
Yeah. So with tabbouleh, if someone is wondering, so it's a lot of well, it's onion and tomatoes, and parsley.
half.
Yeah, plenty of parsley. Like back in the day when we were in Iraq, you would see the bags and the bags and the bags of green things sitting in the kitchen. We were like, okay, we're having tabbouleh today because you have to chop so much and you have to, I don't know, just yeah, you have to have heaps because you have to make a tashat, meaning a big massive bowl, like
Yeah.
the bowls that you, the size of a bowl, literally around the size of a basket that you put a newborn baby in to watch them.
Yeah.
You have to have such massive quantities to be able to. Yeah. Anyway. enough about tabbouleh. And you obviously, like Rita was saying, it's tangy because we add, lemon juice and a bit of salt, and of course olive oil. So yeah, if you want to try it at home, tell me how it is.
Sure.
Moving from tabbouleh though, you've got some things that you've learned as an Iraqi immigrant when you first moved to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Could you name perhaps like 3 things that you think, oh my gosh, definitely looking back, that's what I've learned?
I guess the obvious one is English, because when I came here, I didn't know. In Malta, they have their own language, Maltese. So I learned that when we moved there. So I didn't really know. I knew very little English.
Do
I
you
had to
still
learn.
speak Maltese?
Sorry?
Do you still speak Maltese?
No, because I think when I came here, I had to quickly learn English, and there wasn't really anyone to speak Maltese with, I guess, outside of my family. So there was a big focus shift. And so I think that saying, what you lose what you don't use.
Yeah. Can you remember a word or two in Maltese? Like saying hi or how are you? Or...
I've completely forgotten. But interestingly enough,
yeah,
a lot of it has got strong Arabic roots.
yeah.
So it's got a lot of Arabic resemblance and a bit of Italian.
Arabic.
So it definitely made it easier for my parents to learn Maltese.
Okay.
And I think they actually say something like kifik,
yeah.
Which is very similar to Arabic.
Yeah, like Lebanese.
Yeah.
Kifak, meaning hello. Oh no, it means how are you
how are you?
In the Lebanese accent. So any Lebanese people watching, kifa walak. Okay, so you learned English when you came here.
And then the other thing I remember having to learn when I came to primary was netball. I had never seen or heard of such a sport. And I obviously remember I arrived here not long, so maybe I was 8.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really listening. We were outside and about to play a game of netball, and I obviously didn't really listen and just wanted to play, and I was a kid.
Yeah.
And so all I remember is I grabbed the ball and ran with the ball to the goal, and just had no care in the world. I was so excited that I had gotten hold of the ball, ran to the end of the court, shot the ball, missed, and then turned around and realised everyone had stopped and was calling out, Rita, 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 you're not allowed to run with the ball. And
oh my goodness, I'm laughing because it was the same for me.
So that was the first netball lesson I'd had, was we can't run with the ball.
Yeah.
And I thought I was running so fast and no one was catching me, but little did I know everyone had stopped and was waiting.
Do you play well now? Are you a good netball player?
No. I'm not. I don't think sports isn't my natural forte.
Yeah.
And I haven't played for a long time, but I wouldn't. Maybe one day I'll join some social netball.
Yeah. Okay.
The only thing is sometimes it's not that social.
Yeah. Well, netball is not social.
No, sometimes they can be quite competitive.
Yeah, I know, right? And you're like, oh, I just want to get out of your way. I don't want to get hit. Yeah. Okay, so what's the third thing that you learned?
I think culturally, maybe as I got older, I learned that Kiwis definitely tend, as a stereotype, they tend to be on time and wake up early, which is quite different to the stereotypical Iraqi culture, where we are generally night owls enough to stay up late and have, parties, or just even chatting and lots of snacks and sleeping in the morning or have naps during the day. And I guess now with work and having to wake up early, I probably go to bed earlier than I used to, but naturally I'm definitely more of a night owl, and if they say come at 2, I might come at 3.
Oh, have you learned to be on time a little bit more now that you're Kiwiraqi?
I think if you ask my friends, they tell you at uni I was terrible and I was notorious for always being quite late.
Yeah.
And Now I'm definitely better. I'm still always cutting it quite fine or a little bit late,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely better.
Well, it's quite an interesting thing to hear all these things that you've learned, as it's so unique to you. Learning all these stuff about being on time, or rising early, learning how to play netball, because it's so different from soccer, which
Yeah.
I'm sure you've thought about rugby as well, like why people are hitting each other and fighting each other, and why what have ليش يسوون هيك بروحهم. Like, why are they doing this to themselves? Well, rugby is such a brutal game, and
Yeah.
something that we've not heard before. Yeah, it's quite odd, and I think being in New Zealand, with the like English, lost in translation, I'm sure you had such funny moments that, as a FOB, like fresh off the boat, stories that you be like, I will never forget this. Tell us. I mean, do you remember?
Plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a few from when we first arrived. I think one when we pretty new to Auckland, a family friend kindly brought us a big bag of avocados, and we'd never seen or heard of this ever. And so we tried a couple raw, and I think we probably cracked one that wasn't ripe, and then tried it raw, and we didn't really like the taste. It had no flavor, didn't like the texture. It was very odd. And so my parents, coming from, like having grown up with very little and gone
Yeah.
through war, they definitely taught us to not waste a thing. So what they did was walk down to our local dairy with this bag of huge avocados, and dairy was probably stoked because my parents exchanged it for a simple box of eggs.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah.
Are you
But
regretting?
it's to our regret because we all now love avocado.
Oh my god. Okay, give us two more stories.
um, I guess another one, it wasn't so much us, but a family friend of ours. When they'd arrived, they were a couple with four, I think, teenage sons. So there was six of them, and their neighbours kindly invited them over for a barbecue.
Mm.
And their neighbours told them to bring a plate. And I think this might be a common misunderstanding, but they literally brought 6 plates because they thought maybe the family didn't have enough. Uh, and the poor hosts were probably surprised that there were these 6 people with no.
With 6 empty plates, like, hey, it's an empty plate. You asked for it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a thing like, it's so funny because in the Iraqi culture, there's no such thing as bring a plate. You are invited to someone's house, and you are, I suppose, you're expected to not bring something, or if you are bringing something, we don't normally say bring a plate. People just kind of come in and I suppose it's a terminology. I'm just trying to remember back in Iraq when we used to go to people's houses. I mean, I was young as well, but we used to go to people's houses. We did make something and take it with us, but I don't know. I think we used to say maybe jib fachi, or bring something. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the kind of the term. But here it's like jib ma'un. It's like, okay, I'll bring sit ma'in. I'll bring you 6
Well, I
plates.
guess maybe sometimes in Iraqi culture you come with either a small gift or something, and because it all evens out because you'll invite them back and fully host in the same manner.
Yeah.
I guess things like potlucks aren't as common in Iraqi culture.
No. Yeah, it's interesting. There are a few myths that's out there when it comes to adjusting well to a new culture. I think some of them that I kind of think of is that it's easy to adjust. Secondly, you don't need to know the language to adjust.
Mm.
Thirdly, it takes a short time to adjust. And fourthly, you don't need to do so much research to adjust. These are the 4 myths that that's out there when trying to step into a new culture. But I think that you have three myth busters that's going to help people who are trying to move from maybe an outside country, maybe to New Zealand, who are thinking about moving to New Zealand to live. So what are these three mythbusters?
I think you definitely have to learn the language. I think that language is a huge icebreaker and you're first into any culture or into holding on to any culture as well. And people love it, even if you're still learning, if you make an effort. And even if you sound silly, will definitely appreciate the effort and you will get better with time. So I think definitely learning the language and making friends from that culture.
Definitely.
So I guess ideally trying to get out of you don't have to lose your bubble or your culture, but pushing yourself out there and getting out of your bubble and your circle and meeting some local people. But sometimes that can be quite challenging, but that's definitely the way to go, and learning about their language, their music, their food. I think they're very core and practical things that are a big part of any culture. And I think you can be, while you're meeting them, you can still be quite open and share about your own culture. And most people are interested in learning, and we all have something that we can teach each other and offer each other. So being kind of open and willing, but I think you just have to have a leap of faith and get out there and meet people and do your best.
Oh, that's nice. I like it. We've pretty much busted all the myths. So I know that you both went through high school. Which high school did you go to?
All right.
Which high school did you go to?
I went to Barradine College in Auckland.
Awesome. Nice. You've definitely had an interesting and full experience being in high school. I mean, was it easy to be in high school?
No, I think high school was quite a hard time for me. I think it's a hard time for lots of people because you're going through your teenage years and you're trying to figure out who you are and what you like and don't like, and trying to, over time, you figure out what you want to take from your parents and what they've passed on to you and what you don't want to hold on to. And
I mean, how did you survive being in high school?
I guess, I don't know, a day at a time and some friends and
Did you swap your dad's awesome lamb sandwiches, which now you regret?
Yeah, that's how my dad used to sometimes make me these epic lamb sandwiches. They're called like chili fry, and put it in a sandwich, and they're so good. I still love them. And I think I used to get two, and now I regret it, but I used to swap it for some junk food.
So why did you give it to your friends?
I think I used to have two, and I don't know how it started, whether she wanted to try it, and then I wanted some of her junk food that I didn't have, and then it kind of just became a habit. But now that I'm older, I'm like, I'd way prefer the lamb sandwich.
Does he still make you those lamb sandwiches?
He still makes chili fry, not in a sandwich, but the same kind of lamb minced with tomatoes and stuff. And I guess in terms of what helped, having friends, I mean, it was good to have some friends that were also from quite conservative cultures, and where they had, their parents were a bit more protective than others, and so I guess we had something in common, and they were a bit more understanding if I wasn't allowed to go to certain things, or if there were certain rules or different.
What were you not allowed to go to, if you may share?
Well, I guess especially when I was younger, things like socials, and I think, what did they call them at the time? Jet Sonics or something like that, or
wow, Jet Sonics.
I can't remember if that's what they called them. Or I guess parties where there was drinking, or that kind of stuff was not really okay with my parents, and particularly being a girl from an Iraqi culture, and the Iraqi culture does tend to be a bit more conservative.
So you were brought up in a conservative environment.
Yeah, I think fairly. My parents did try and be balanced, and once I got to uni and I was older and a bit more wiser and could make my own decisions, they they let me make my own decisions. But while I was a young teenager, they definitely set some boundaries.
Yeah.
And it was a bit different to some of the other kids, so that could sometimes
did you feel like it was fair? Like, did you like those boundaries, or were you kind of rebellious a bit against them?
I don't think I was so much rebellious, but I probably didn't find it fair because the people around me, a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them didn't have those boundaries or rules. So I probably found it unfair at times when I compared to other kids.
Yeah.
The girls my age. But I definitely kept me safe. And
now looking back, you think that was good. It was good to be in a, if you have your own family, would you run the family or raise them the same way? I suppose bit of a futuristic question, but like the way that your family raised you as an Iraqi, because this is part of the Iraqiness, is being conservative. It is a conservative culture, the Iraqi culture. So do you tend to lean towards that way of parenting?
I guess so. I think it's hard to know without being there. And I think it's always hard parenting is very hard, and I don't really know what the right thing to do, but I definitely would I do feel like I would lean in that way where I'd be quite involved and set some good boundaries and hopefully set some good morals to set the kids up for good teenage years.
Yeah.
And I definitely would I don't want to be a helicopter parent as such, but I definitely would want to know what they're doing and who they're hanging out with.
I think helicopter parent was the 90s. I think now it's more the drone parent.
Yeah, we've upgraded.
It's all another level, and you're smaller, you're quieter, you can sneak in. You can't
sneaky. There's a lot more sneaky. That's right.
Exactly. I do resonate with the conservative families because I have spoken to Amina Russom. And by the way, if you're watching this episode, thank you. I do often forget to remind people to please like this video. So down under here to like this video and also to subscribe. Click the subscribe button. It's just a yellow one that says click me. Yeah, click it and subscribe. If you're liking this video and you're enjoying it and you think, gosh, I want more stories about Iraqi people, why not? I'm learning stuff because we're sharing a lot of things right now, and Rita is amazing as well. So if you're loving Rita, give us a thumbs up. I was talking about Mina Rassam, who I chatted to, and by the way, you can check the episode. We have part 2, like 2 parts. So she was talking about having a conservative background, conservative parents, and how they were like, oh no parties, no going out, to a certain extent, and no drinking, and it sounds like it's quite common. I thought I was the only one. So I was like,
yeah, and you do feel like that when you're a teenager, but you're not.
Yeah, I know. Had you done a survey at that time, you would have realized that everybody was on the same page. So you had exactly how many years did you spend in high school? The typical 7 years from
so from year 7 to year 13. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so you kind of swapped your dad's awesome sandwiches just to try to get new friends.
Yeah.
But
did work.
You were able to find good friends who had culturally sensitive background that culturally conservative background that is sensitive to your own background.
Yeah.
But you were also saying that you wished you had more hobbies.
Yeah, I definitely think I would have enjoyed high school more if I got more involved.
Yeah.
whether it's sports or stage challenge or something. I think towards the end I did a few little things like 40-hour famine and but I do think people that were more involved in extracurricular activities probably had a more fun and wholesome experience in high school.
Interesting.
And I guess the other thing that helped was at the end of high school, I joined that Iraqi youth group I told you about, and I really felt like I met some cool people and friends that I still have today that I really clicked with, and kind of built a friendship from then on.
Yeah. So, you know, would you, if you would take back time, what would you have done differently?
In terms of hobbies, I guess maybe trying out netball a bit more or getting involved. I mean, we had stage challenge every year. Not that I'm that talented, but you can just do. There's a whole range of roles, and everyone can do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, something along those lines. I think would have added to my experience.
Yeah. You know, obviously you've moved on from high school, and then now you back into you moved from high school into university, and you had a journey of how you got to be where you are now. So you're a doctor, and you're a junior doctor, but you had a bit of a journey to get there. So, you know, tell us briefly, how did you make decisions? You know, being an Iraqi, being woman, being a new culture. How did you navigate such a big decision to get to where you are now?
Well, I think when I was finishing high school, I don't know what 17-year-old knows what they want to do for the rest of their life. It's quite a big.
I know, right?
It's quite a big decision, and particularly in Iraqi culture, the things that are quite common and quite pleasing and looked up to are the more vocational professions. And so in summary, I guess at the time I really liked science and I was good at it, and I really liked working with people, and my brother was a pharmacist, and so I thought I'd just follow in that, kind of decided to follow that path. And so I did pharmacy, and I did enjoy it, and I worked and then when I did a placement as a pharmacist in a hospital, and I liked that. So then I worked as a hospital pharmacist, and I did that for a few years. And and in that I worked quite closely with I met tons of doctors, and I would work with them all the time. And I started to see kind of firsthand what their work is like. And I became really good friends with them. And so then started as just a little seed or a thought about thinking about going back to uni to do medicine. And I didn't think much of that thought initially, but the thought definitely persisted over years, and that desire grew, and I prayed about it a lot. And I think, I had a real peace and excitement about it. And I think the other big thing that inspired me to make the big move to go back to being a student and moving to Dunedin and starting that part of my life again was my mum's also a doctor, and she gave up when she left Iraq. She gave up medicine for over maybe 10, 15 years, and then retrained when she was much older, when us kids were older. And she had to, pretty much, she didn't go back she did 1 year retraining, but had to start from being a brand new junior doctor in the New Zealand hospitals. And so I definitely had seen that for myself, and that it is, if she can go back and study and retrain at about 40 or however old she was, then I could. I was much younger, so I could do it. And that was definitely a huge inspiration, and I think a great role model when you see it with your own eyes. And so with time and prayer, like I said, I had a lot of peace and excitement about making the move. And I thought about it a lot, and I thought about my reasons and my intentions and why I wanted to do it. And so, yeah, in the end, I took the plunge and applied to a few places, and then went through Otago.
How was it going back to uni after getting out of uni and working and having that freedom with no more studying? Why? How? I mean, yeah, I mean, it must have been passion for you to have driven you to do that, like you were saying.
Yeah, I definitely really wanted to do it. And I actually loved uni. I had loads of fun.
Yeah.
And I felt like for a little while I went back to my 18-year-old self with, like, I guess all I had to look after was myself and make sure I did a bit of study. And I think in Otago as well, there was definitely, I was flanning for the first time, and there's definitely a very different student culture, and you all live nearby. And so I really enjoyed the social part of it and the learning. And then we would just all cram together at the end of the year and live in the library for a few weeks. And I guess that kind of suffering for a little bit brought us closer together, and then you get through and do it again. But I really loved it, and I loved I loved things like getting long summer holidays at uni, and I definitely I think it was a real God thing, and everything kind of worked out. And I even managed, because I was originally worried that maybe money would be an issue, because going from a full-time salary to not earning anymore. But it all worked out. I got great summer jobs and managed to get through, and really enjoyed my time and learned a lot. And through my studies, I traveled throughout the country as well.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And I like how you said you prayed about it and you had peace. And these are two key things, I suppose, in your own determination or in your discernment, like you kind of, this is how you figure it out,
Yeah, definitely. And I think with anything, with any big decisions for me personally, I always pray and ask that I could have that peace and excitement about the decision.
That's good.
I find that they're good.
That's good. I like that. That's an aha moment there. Peace, excitement about it. If you're liking this as well, give us a thumbs up. If you're enjoying this, if you're also loving this video and loving this channel and loving Rita, please subscribe so you can be updated, and make sure that the alarm thing is activated so that you can I'm not great with asking people to do these things. I'm trying to, but I am going to ask you, Rita, is now that you've gone through high school, you've gone through university, you've gone through university part 2. Now
I like it so much.
What do you reckon? Now this is a different phase of your life. You've been married for a few years, so what sort of, from your point of view, what makes a relationship work in your life, both platonic and the romantic?
Well, I guess marrying a ginger Irishman is the way to go. Actually, he told me to say that. I'm kidding. I think a big thing for us in terms of romantic or marriage relationship, I'd say, is God, and depending on him and his love helps me love my husband Gav, and vice versa. And I guess we believe that when we pray together and work together, and we focus on God, then as a result we will also grow closer together, and that we can, when you do have disagreements and hard times, then when you've got that shared faith and focus, then you can work it out. And I guess things that there's a lot of things that would apply for both platonic and romantic relationships. I think things like spending time together is really important and creating memories. I think for me personally, there's not much that replaces that. I think it's really important and really cherished, and that's how you build healthy, strong friendships. And I kind of mentioned it, even say whether it was through like studying together. I think sharing in each other's joy and suffering, whether it's with friends or in a marriage, also brings you closer together. So as I said, at uni, it would be things like when we were struggling through exams and studying and scared, or through life in a marriage relationship, you'll always have ups and downs, but sharing in the joys and the suffering definitely makes you stronger and builds your bond, I believe. And then I guess the other thing is, which is sometimes easier said than done, but letting things go. I think
how are you gonna let that go though? I mean, if he's gonna put the toilet seat down or up, like what's gonna happen there?
Luckily, he puts it down.
Good.
I guess you have to think, if you could try and pause for a second and think, is it worth it, and how big it, like, is it really that big a deal for me to put the toilet seat down, or
we're talking about the rest of your life here, Rita. So
yes, I guess thinking about whether it is, like, how important is it to you, how big a deal is it, and if it is, then I think it's important to bring it up. But if it's, a lot of the time, if you pause and think, it's not really a big deal and it's not worth bringing up.
Okay, well, we've established now that it's important to marry a ginger Irishman.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Number one rule.
Yeah, God is key in your relationship, and creating memories together is important. Letting things go is important, and sharing in the joy and the suffering. Have you been able to achieve some of these things now that you've been married a few years?
Yeah, definitely. I think life will always throw things at you, and in terms of the spending time together and creating memories, I think it's quite important to be intentional and try and plan things, or holidays or nights out or something, because it's quite easy to just get into the usual routine of life and your basic needs.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to book in those times and be intentional about creating memories, because otherwise chances are they won't just happen on their own, or
That's some real wisdom there, Rita. Just to finish off our conversation, 3 favorite places that you love to go in New Zealand for a vacation.
Well, I guess I love
favorite things to do. Up to you. Things or places, whatever.
I think New Zealand is so beautiful and has so much to offer. So I love places like Queenstown and the South Island, which I think everyone does. But also I quite like doing some hikes or tramping. And so I think my favourite hikes that I've done are the Queen Charlotte track and the Abel Tasman track, which are at the top of the South Island. I'd highly recommend. They're beautiful, beautiful hidden parts of New Zealand with beautiful beaches and scenery and walks. Everywhere in New Zealand is pretty amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Rita Kettoola, Dr. Rita Kettoola, for coming on the show and chatting to me. And if you like this episode and you made it to the end, well done. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Today's episode is a little bit longer, and it's so worth it to have you on the show and to listen to your inspirational stories and your wisdom. And so, yeah, if you're watching and you're listening, watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, if you like this stuff, please like on YouTube and subscribe, because this really helps the channel be known and the algorithm of YouTube shows my stuff to other people. And of course, I'd like to grow. I'm wanting to reach 1,000 subscribers. Currently, I'm sitting on 194, so I've got a bit of a
We'll help you get there.
Bit of a mountain to climb. Yeah, maybe I should come hiking with you one day. Hike up the YouTube ladder. So yeah, I am so keen. Thank you for listening, for watching, for supporting. Rita Kettoola, thank you so much again for coming on the show. You're a gem, and all the best to you.
Thanks, Mina. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Until next week, hi Rita.